Welcome to Chronicles of Faith, Bible short stories. We begin not with a saint, but with a hunter. Imagine the city of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. It is a powder keg of religious tension and Roman occupation. In the center of it all is Saul of Tarsus. To understand Paul, you have to understand Saul. He was a brilliant, rising star in the Jewish world, a man who saw the world in black and white, right and wrong. When the young deacon Stephen was dragged outside the city walls to be executed, Saul was there. He didn't just watch, he presided. As the stones began to fly, Saul stood over the piles of coats, his eyes cold and certain. He believed he was doing God a favor by wiping out this Jesus movement. In the weeks that followed, Saul became the early church's greatest nightmare. He didn't just wait for believers to come to him. He went looking for them. He burst into private homes, shattering the peace of families, dragging men and women into the streets to be thrown into dungeons. He was fueled by a terrifying brand of sincerity. He wasn't a villain in his own mind. He was a hero. And that hero was now turning his eyes toward the city of Damascus, 150 miles away, intent on extinguishing the light of the gospel there as well. The journey to Damascus took about a week, plenty of time for Saul to sharpen his resolve. But God had a different plan for that road. At high noon, the time when the sun is at its most punishing, a light exploded from the sky that made the sun look like a candle. Saul was thrown from his horse, hitting the dirt. And then a voice, not a thunderclap, but a direct, piercing question. "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" When Saul whispered, "Who are you, Lord?" the answer shattered his entire worldview. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." In that moment, Saul realized that every stone he approved, every chain he tightened, was an attack on the Creator himself. He stood up, but his world remained dark. He was physically blind, a symbol of how spiritually blind he had been. For 3 days in Damascus, he sat in a house on Straight Street. No food, no water, just a man stripped of his pride. It took a humble man named Ananias, a man Saul had likely come to arrest, to walk in, call him brother, and lay hands on him. When the scales fell from Saul's eyes, he didn't just see the room, he saw his purpose. The hunter had been captured by love. Saul became Paul, and the wolf of Tarsus became the apostle to the Gentiles. For the next 20 years, his life was a whirlwind of movement. He traveled over 10,000 miles, mostly on foot or by small, treacherous boats. Imagine him in Athens, standing on the Areopagus. He's surrounded by the greatest minds of the age, men who worshipped logic and stone idols. Paul didn't yell. He engaged. He pointed to their statue of the unknown God and told them, "He is the one I've come to tell you about." Imagined him in Ephesus, where his preaching was so powerful that the local idolmakers started a riot because they were losing business. Paul was a cultural earthquake. He wasn't just preaching a nice story. He was challenging the social order of the Roman Empire. He taught that a slave was equal to a master in the eyes of Christ, a radical, dangerous idea that threatened the very foundations of Rome. While Paul was traveling, he was also writing. These letters, the epistles, would become the backbone of the New Testament. To understand Paul, we must look at the why behind his journey. He explained that being good enough is an impossible mountain to climb. He introduced the world to the concept of justification by faith, an idea that God's love isn't a wage you earn. He told them, "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong." He redefined love as an action, not a feeling. Patient, kind, not easily angered, keeping no record of wrongs. Paul lived this message. He forgave the very people who had once hunted him. The final years of Paul's life were spent in chains, but even a Roman prison couldn't hold his spirit. On a prison ship bound for Rome, a storm called the Northeaster battered them for 2 weeks. The sailors were throwing cargo overboard, certain they would die. Paul stood up a prisoner in shackles and became the commander. He told them, "An angel of the God to whom I belong stood by me." They crashed on Malta, and just as Paul predicted, not a single life was lost. Eventually, Paul reached Rome, not as a conqueror, but as a captive, in a small, damp cell. He wrote his final letter to young Timothy. You can almost hear the scratch of his pen and the rattle of his chains as he writes. The time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. Tradition tells us Paul was led out of the city to be beheaded. He walked to his death with the same intensity he once used to hunt Christians. But this time he was walking toward the light he first saw on the Damascus road. He died a martyr, but his letters would outlive the Caesars. Thank you for spending this time with us on Chronicles of Faith. Paul's transformation is a testament that your past does not define your future. If the worst of sinners could become the greatest messenger of hope, imagine what God can do with your story. If this journey moved you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We have so many more stories of faith to tell. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. What's your favorite Paul moment? Tell us in the comments. Until next time, stay grounded in faith and keep sharing the light. Thanks for watching.